Okay, so today's Monday, Today's Monday, April 28th, 2025. I've been doing a lot of deep research, not so much regarding Bitfarms, but regarding the other companies that sort of orbit around the potential space that Bitfarms has available for HPC AI development. My rationale being, I want to better understand the dynamics of that marketplace. So that begins with better understanding who some of the so-called hyperscalers are. It also then involves better understanding some of the companies that then supply these hyperscalers with the equipment that they need to actually do the high-performance computing and AI type applications that they're interested in doing. So this really spans from companies like Meta, Alphabet, which of course is Google, Meta, of course, which is Facebook, Instagram, companies like Microsoft, companies like Amazon, then moving one layer up to companies like NVIDIA, to companies like Advanced Micro Devices, to companies like Intel, maybe moving one step higher, looking at companies like NVIDIA, looking at companies like, for example, Marvell Technologies, looking at companies like, for example, TSMC, looking at companies like Global Foundries, looking at Applied Materials, looking at Broadcom, looking at all these different companies that form this semiconductor slash hyperscaler industry, which is ultimately a big part of what will ultimately get plugged in, hopefully, at Panther Creek, which of course is a Bitfarms owned facility after the Stronghold Digital Mining acquisition. I also expanded a little bit of my research horizontally to include Riot platforms. And the reason why is because Riot in particular owns a portion of Bitfarms and has also indicated, if my understanding is correct, that the Corsicana facility is, to paraphrase, completely available to a potential hyperscaler if the right offer and if the right deal were to come around. I thought that was profound. I was listening to an earnings call in which I believe, I don't know for sure, but it might have been Reggie Jackson? I forget. It might have been Reggie Jackson over at JP Morgan. Don't quote me on the names or the firms. I might be mixing things up because I've been listening to a lot and reading a lot. But I believe it may have been Jason, right? The CEO of Riot, who I think, if I understood correctly, indicated that the 400 megawatts of energy that's currently being used for Bitcoin mining at Corsicana, if I understood that correctly, could just be made available to a hyperscaler who wants the full gigawatt. Because bear in mind, there's about, I think, 600 megawatts that's currently not being used at Corsicana, which, Riot decided, hey, we kind of want to explore this whole HPC AI side of things. So that's certainly available. But I thought that question was very revealing. Very, very revealing that you would consider just ceasing to mine Bitcoin. Now, I don't know if that's, I want to be somewhat artful in my description of this, right? I mean, hey, are you literally just bringing a bunch of 18-wheel trucks, dumping these Bitcoin mining machines into them and trying to sell them to whoever's, wants to buy them? If you decide not to pursue any more Bitcoin mining with the 400 megawatts that are currently being used for Bitcoin mining, is it more a matter of a phased transition out of Bitcoin mining, right? So it's not like an abrupt end, but rather more of a transitional sort of thing. I think what's important is to recognize, at least I'm starting to recognize, that some very intelligent people who, they don't have a crystal ball, but they, I think, understand that Bitcoin mining economics have the potential to be amazing for limited periods of time. But then Bitcoin mining economics have the potential to be absurdly difficult, absurdly challenging. The amount of capital expenditure that's going to be required in the not too distant future to revitalize right, operations. I'm not just picking on Riot here. I'm saying CleanSpark, Bitfarms, Riot, Mara, you name the company. At some point, they're going to have to revitalize their fleet of Bitcoin mining machines to remain competitive into the next halving. Didn't we just have a halving about a year ago? Yes, but the next halving is on its way. It's going to arrive whether we want it to arrive or not. And so the impression I'm getting is that there are companies such as Bitfarms, such as Riot, others perhaps, right, that are really starting to think long and hard about Bitcoin mining economics. I took a closer look at the cash flow statement for a variety of companies in the Bitcoin mining space. I'm not going to pick on any one company and mention it by name, because this is a phenomena that I kind of noticed, generally speaking, across the entire industry, where just the amount of cash burn involved is staggering. And so, and again, hey, look I get it, right? We got a bull run in the price of Bitcoin. Yeah, a lot of these names are going to fly. And for those of us, right, who are more interested in simply seeing our investment in these companies do well, that's all that matters. I get it. But I find it interesting and informative and useful to really kind of wrap my arms around just how thin the ice appears to be. And I'm not talking about from a liquidity perspective, right? A lot of these companies have sold plenty of shares, have raised a lot of capital, right? I'm not talking about that. I just mean in terms of Bitcoin mining economics as a viable business. It's kind of a crappy business, It's not exactly a business that you say to yourself, wow, I'd love to just buy shares of a particular company, close my eyes, and open my eyes again in 5 years. In 5 years, your company may have been acquired, your company may have been, liquidated, your company may have been transformed from Bitcoin mining into something else, right? It's a very, very challenging industry. Now, the reason why I think many of us, right, can become attracted to Bitcoin miners is because of the volatility and because of the sheer propensity for these stocks to just move in ways that very few other stocks move, right? And that's can be very enticing from the perspective of making some money to the upside, possibly making some money to the downside, right? If you're shorting a stock, that kind of thing. There's just a lot of movement, right? And some of these companies have incredibly liquid options chains, which makes the process of speculating on price movements even all the more enticing. So I understand where the focus is, right? It's on the stock price. It's on, hey, what's going on with the price of Bitcoin? It's all just prices, really, right? My digging into the details of the operations, it's kind of meaningless in many ways, and I get that. Because all that kind of matters is like, hey, what's the price of Bitcoin? Is it going to pump higher? Is there going to be some sort of massive inflow of investment into Bitcoin from the US government or from other sources? Is that then going to drive a major bull run in the price of shares of publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies, right? But, what I've discovered is that there are names that have been really beaten up further up this stream. I mean, certainly Bitfarms has been beaten up, and I am very pleased and very proud to report that, yes, you noticed this, we had a number of days there where the price of Bitfarms closed above $1 a share. Really, really important, right? Really important to just kind of resetting the clock, making sure that the company is not going to have to go through the arduous and challenging process of getting a letter from the SEC, then having a 180-day grace period, then having to try to get 10 consecutive trading sessions in a row in which your minimum bid price is $1 or more, not maybe being able to do that due to market conditions that are outside of your control, and then finding yourself having to contemplate a reverse stock split to remain listed. Stronghold Digital Mining went through all of that, and it was not a very fun experience, to say the least. And the last thing I'd like to see is for those shareholders who may still remain that are now part of Bitfarms, who were once part of Stronghold, having to see their shares reverse split yet again. So I'm very pleased to see that Bitfarms stock price kind of cooperated there. Bottom line, there's definitely a lot of money being spent on developing data center infrastructure. I think it is more likely than not that Bitfarms will indeed get a customer. Okay. What's not entirely clear to me is whether or not Panther Creek as we know it today will resemble, will we be able to see the Panther Creek that we see today in the future version of this Panther Creek data center campus, right? And that's not clear to me. That's not clear to me. And listen, at the end of the day, any deal that's struck is going to have to make sense for both parties, right? But based on what I've read and what I've seen and what I will see, because I'm going to definitely be paying attention to, I think Amazon's coming out with their earnings this week. A number of companies that, operate data centers at scale are going to be coming out with earnings. And so I'm going to be paying very close attention to whether or not they're indicating, hey, we're going to be pulling back on capital expenditure because of, be it tariffs, be it because of, market forces, whatever verbiage you want to insert there, that would be the rationale for pulling back on investment, because that could potentially have an impact on Bitfarms and any potential deal. But suffice it to say that what I'm seeing so far is very, very promising. And so I am encouraged by what I'm seeing. As with anything else, right, the proverbial devil is going to be in the details, right? What are going to be the details of any deal that's struck? But I think something's coming. I think something big is coming. And I think it really has the potential to then fill in this question mark, right, that I think many of us have had regarding what is the new Bitfarms going to look like, right? This is the era of the new Bitfarms. And many people, right, hey, there's that question, well, what is the new Bitfarms going to really look like, right? And I think we're going to be getting answers to that this year, without a doubt. I feel strong. I'm convinced that we are going to get an answer this year. Now, does that answer going to include a fully built out data center? No, of course not. I'll be astonished if that were the case. But I think we're going to get some contracts. I think we're going to get some clarity. I think we're going to get some cash. And I think we're going to get a stock price that I believe has the potential to get re-rated and hopefully kind of transferred from the, Bitcoin miner bucket to the AI / HPC / hyperscaler bucket of sorts, right? That's going to be important because Bitcoin mining is a beautiful thing when it works. But man, it's a brutal, painful, arduous, money-losing thing when it doesn't work, right? So we want to be on the side of having some exposure to Bitcoin, right? I could see Bitfarms is doing that. Hey, we want to have some exposure. If the price is going to really accelerate, as it has, in the past 3 halvings, it's usually been 12 to 18 months that we've really seen a rise in the price of Bitcoin. We're only up, I think, roughly here about 50-ish% from the level that we were at in April of last year. That's not a very inspiring amount of rise in the price of Bitcoin. We've got about 6 months left if you want to completely look through the rear view mirror and say, well, okay, Stephen, it's 12 to 18 months. So add 6 to 12, you get 18. So in the next 6 months, are we going to potentially see a really significant rise in the price of Bitcoin? I don't have a crystal ball. I'm optimistic that, hey, can it get back over 100? That would be great. But instead of gambling the entire future of the business, being, the business being Bitfarms. Instead of gambling the entire future of the business on a lucky break with the price of Bitcoin, and more importantly, hash prices, I'm very encouraged and excited and grateful to see that Bitfarms is being sober-minded about this and saying, you know what, let's try to diversify a bit. Let's not bet entirely on Bitcoin. We've got some amazing assets via the Stronghold Digital Mining acquisition. Let's see if we can monetize them. And that, to me, my friend, is very, very encouraging. Okay, let's stay positive, let's be great, and we'll see each other again very, very soon.